Hello and welcome to Tableau Connection Methods from MarkLogic University. In this episode, we'll talk about 3 methods of accessing data from MarkLogic for use in Tableau. To follow along with this tutorial, you'll need MarkLogic installed, access to Tableau, and some data to work with. The data I'll be using is simulated patient records. BI tools are a common way for enterprises to analyze their data. With BI, such as Tableau, there are different ways of connecting based on your use case or business needs. How you select is going to be driven by your current IT setup and your use cases. If you need the ability to run live queries against the database, such as what is my financial exposure right now, then ODBC will probably be the choice for you. The advantage of live is everything you see in your BI tool is up to date. On the other hand, your queries are hitting your production system and they are running at the speed of your database. The ODBC connection was demonstrated in the first video in the series, MarkLogic and Tableau. What if you want to get a huge amount of data, but it doesn't need to be live, such as annual patient charges? Data extract is probably your best choice. This allows you to programmatically batch and convert data, any data, to an optimized format. Using code like Java, you can certainly call SQL to get the data you want, but you don't need to. It could be a call to REST or some server-side code that extracts data from MarkLogic. For data extract, the idea is I'm going to save a snapshot of my data and then point to that from Tableau. What I've done is I've written a server-side script that generates a JSON representation of the data points that I'm interested in. So this doesn't have to be everything, just the portions that I'm actually wanting. A quick save and I'm ready to head over to Tableau. Here in Tableau, I can choose JSON file over in the left in the connection list. Now I can choose the JSON that I just saved. Since I want to work with all of these values, I need to select their levels before I hit OK. Tableau has now opened my JSON file, and you can see the various fields listed along the top with our data listed below. Notice we have one entry for each patient, so we can already see that Tableau will be able to use our data. But let's keep going. Right away, I can see one change that I want to make. At the moment, the charges dollar amount is listed as a string. I want to go ahead and change that to a decimal. Once I've got my data is looking good, I can head over to Sheet 1. If I wanted to, I could quickly see how much each facility took in by setting facility as my column and charges as the rows. Changing its measure to sum, and we now have a total. And we could easily change that to average if we wanted to see the average charge per visit. The third method for connecting with Tableau is the Web Data Connector. With the Web Data Connector, you write a front end using code that can accept parameters from a user, pulls data from the database via a REST endpoint, and then maps the data for use in Tableau. The advantage of the Web Data Connector is that you are not restricted to using SQL ODBC. In order for Tableau to leverage a Web Data Connector, we need at minimum an HTML file and a JavaScript file to be hosted on a web server. we'll be able to use MarkLogic to host these files for us. Let's take a quick look at the files, then I'll show you how I loaded them, and finally we can leverage it. Tableau has an easy to follow tutorial on creating a WDC, which is what these files are based on. In short, we are looking to include the Web Data Connector API, a script for connecting to our system, and any web form needed for settings and such. Notice the last script to be included. As long as this HTML and the JavaScript file have the same URI prefix, we'll be able to leverage it. Now let's check out the JavaScript. If you didn't need any sort of dialog for choices or input when you go to leverage your data in Tableau, you could use the init section I've grayed out, and that would prevent any sort of pop-up or dialog box. Now this script does need to specify the schema that Tableau can expect, and then it needs to map our data to that schema. So I've got a schema defined with 4 values of interest. In the Get Data section, we'll do our mapping. You can see the URL for where our data will be coming from. We dig into that and get our patient data, and then loop through the array of results, mapping as we go. The last section is for handling the button push from our HTML. Ultimately, you could load the scripts however you choose to, as long as they make it into the modules database. In my case, I did a couple document load calls, remembering to make sure that the URIs for both files have the same prefix. Now this time in Tableau, I'm going to choose Web Data Connector from the Connect list. At this point, you need to enter the URL for your Web Data Connector. As you can see, mine is already queued up. In my case, my URL will include the port for my MarkLogic app server and the URI of the HTML that I saved to the modules database. If you needed to have options or choices available, maybe to help filter, we could have built that into the HTML to appear at this point. If we didn't need it, we could have used that init section and bypassed this completely. Notice this time in the Data Source tab that the charges is starting as a number. That comes from the schema definition that was in the JavaScript file. So far, it hasn't loaded any data, but clicking Update Now will load a portion of it. Great. Now that I can see some of my data and confirm that it looks good, we can go see it in action. As before, we'll do a simple example to see that the data are being used. Now, if I didn't like the line graph, I could swap it over to a pie chart or whatever representation best suited my needs. Again, this is one of the reasons for using BI tools, is to easily represent and explore your data. You've now seen examples of each of the 3 methods of connecting with Tableau. To get MarkLogic, download it from developer.marklogic.com. Get more training by visiting marklogic.com/training. Also, a complete selection of on-demand topics is available at mlu.marklogic.com/ondemand. Or download the MarkLogic mobile app available on both the Apple App Store and Google Play. And don't forget to show off what you've learned. Add MarkLogic as a skill on your LinkedIn profile today. Thank you for watching this MarkLogic University on-demand tutorial.